John Bond, what is up, bro?
It's good to be here.
I am so glad that you came on this show. Man, it's been this podcast has been a real interesting journey for me because I get to sit down with such cool people like you who've went out there in the world and like put their stamp on it. And you know, I know you from the comic shop, you know, and you're a huge toy guy.
Yes.
Huge toy. But really what you really are is an artist. A real artist at heart.
Yeah, I would say so.
And you've kind of made a living doing it in a very cool way. And the more I've learned about you, the more I realize how ingrained you are in the community, especially in Franklin, and just how successful your business has grown. And I think it's cool. And really what I want to do, man, I want to sit down and I want to hear you tell your stories to the masses because, you know, you've done well, you know, like I said, I just came to the shop, I placed an order over there and like you're in a new building, you know, and you're expanding. So it must be a heck of a journey for you, man.
It is, man. It's always changing. we constantly are evolving. We're very lucky. Franklin's a cool place to own a business. It was really, really good. We started this company about almost 13 years ago now, out of a shed in my backyard.
That's how all these print shops start,
I know. Yeah.
Or in a college dorm room.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, man. I mean, it's been great, and I, you know, born in Kentucky but moved to Franklin when I was going into the third grade. So I've been here my whole life. So I've seen it evolve with, you know, everything coming here. You know, I mean, Franklin's kind of just been in my blood, and I knew it was a great place to be and work and live and start a family. And so when we kind of kicked around the idea of starting this business, I knew it had to be in Franklin. So it's been great.
So kind of give everybody kind of the quick rundown. What's Twine Graphics? You know, how did it start? You know, what do you guys do? And we'll kind of do some of the offshoots because I know there's a lot of tie-ins, especially since I was over the other day. You're like, oh yeah, we're doing this now, by the way.
Yeah.
So you started in you said your garage?
Yeah. Well, so I met my business partner,
the idea
Brandon. Yeah. So we went to graphic design school at Western Kentucky University. I have a BFA in graphic design and a BA in printmaking. So screen printing has been in my. I only did posters. I never even printed a T-shirt before. We'll get to the T-shirts, but. So, yeah, I met Brandon, my business partner, there. And so I graduated a year before him, came back to Franklin and started freelancing, graphic design, had some opportunities, thought I was going to move to Chicago at one point, which had always been a dream of mine, actually. Chicago, I love that city, and randomly enough, that's just where I thought I needed to be. But I had some interviews there for graphic design positions, and I spent a whole week in that city by myself. Went to museums, I went to these interviews, I kind of had a walkabout and just kind of wrote down what I wanted, like what kind of job I wanted to have. And the jobs that were available there were just not really what I wanted. So I kind of had the idea there, kind of sparked this idea of creating something that was the job I wanted to have. So freelance for a while, Brandon graduates, moves to Franklin because he met a girl that was from Franklin in college, ends up marrying her. So he randomly ends up in Franklin.
It's fake, man.
Yeah, man. So we were friends in college, but not best of friends, and we were acquaintances. We had classes together, but we kind of even in college talked about something in this kind of world, creating something ourselves. So, anyways, long story short, we met up one night at Mellow Mushroom downtown Franklin, and just literally kicked the idea around, like, dude, let's create the jobs that we want to have, because he was working for a sign shop at the time. I was driving a box truck. For a commercial flooring business and also freelancing, you know, graphic design. So yeah, that's where Twine kind of came from. And Twine is an acronym for The World Is Not Enough, which is what my Bond family crest means, non-sufficient orbis, which is a James Bond film movie.
Yeah,
too.
I knew that part.
Yeah. So
I was like, did you steal that from James Bond?
Yeah, I did. It's literally on our family crest. So we took that kind of mantra and took the dots out, made it Twine, designed a logo, and that's kind of where it kicked off. And yeah, man, in the flooring business that I worked for, we sold them our first screen print job ever, and with that money, it was like $150. We opened up our first Twine checking account, and we've been rolling ever since.
Man.
So, and then it went to the I ended up going more full on before Brandon, about a year. So we ended up getting a small loan. We got some crappy equipment, threw it in a shed in my backyard. I would design it, print it, ship it, or deliver it locally.
Yeah.
It was just a hustle, man. I mean,
how'd you find your first customers?
Really just hitting the streets.
Friends?
No, hitting the streets, honest to God. We made business cards, and we just hustled. We went everywhere you can imagine. I put a business card in every business owner's hand, in every shop, in every place, in Nashville, Franklin, Brentwood. We did old school, boots on the ground, guerrilla marketing. I mean, it was not pretty, but it worked. So we slowly started to build a base, and luckily it was those initial clients, like my boss at the time at the flooring business, some other family friends that own businesses. Of course, they gave us, the starting point. But we hustled. You had to just do whatever. So I was burning screens at midnight and printing shirts, all day. It was crazy. So we've, and it got to a point where we were getting so many orders that I was like, dude, I can't do this by myself. You gotta come all in on this with me, to Brandon. So we both quit our jobs and we completely dove into this like all out. And in less than I'd say 6 months from that point, we had our first location on Century Court. We rented from a cabinet place over there that had an extra warehouse they didn't need. So we dropped 2 presses in there, just manual presses at the time, so everything's physically pulled. Yeah. You're pulling each squeegee. Man, and that's where it all started. So there was, we were over there for 7 years. We moved locations on that same road to a bigger space. Got our first automatic press, which was a big deal because it was so. Yeah, and then now we're over on Harpeth Industrial Court, which we have another new production facility, 6,000 square foot, full of 3 automatic presses and 16, 17 employees. And then we also have a retail space in downtown Franklin. Yeah. Which that's a whole nother story. That's
15
kind of a
Jennies. It's like, wow.
Yeah. Man. So it's been weird, man. It's a cool journey. It's, we've been very lucky, but we've worked really hard. And I think the biggest thing is like we've realized when opportunities were laid in front of us and we seized on them and we went for it. We had the fortitude, I think, to make those hard choices that some people can't make, take the risk, and it really worked out. So
I'm glad you brought that up because, especially in business, like it's so easy to want to play it safe or want to do, because there's so many times you have to make a decision where it's like, do I bring on another person? Do I buy this piece of equipment? Do I try and go get some more capital, take out a loan? How do I do all these things? Because it's not easy.
It's not.
But
and there's not a clear playbook for it either.
And there's not. An opportunity comes so quietly.
Yes.
And you have no idea if it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
How do you judge that, man? How do you personally?
That's a good question. We've been presented several big pivotal moments where big decisions had to be made, and I feel like a lot of it's instinct. I mean, it just sounds so cheesy, but it's that gut first opinion, first feel that you're just like, I feel it, I think a big thing too in our success and my personal way that I've always approached business and anything is projection. Like if I can see it, if I can visualize that situation and it feels like it's supposed to be, I don't know, I jump on it. Just like the retail thing was nuts. So at the time I was involved with the Downtown Franklin Association, and the Heritage Foundation was run by a woman named Mary Pierce at the time. And she calls me out of the blue, and she's like, "Hey, John, we just acquired this building in downtown Franklin, and we want to put a local business in it, and not to ensure that local businesses have a footprint on Main Street in downtown Franklin." And so I went and met with her, and I mean, we were not at the point to take on some kind of downtown Franklin rent or a whole nother building in which we'd never done retail. We didn't even know what we were going to do with this space. But after looking at it and thinking about it, it was like, this is just an opportunity you can't let go. And there were 60 other businesses that wanted in there, and we were chosen, and we did it, and we signed it, and we made it work. You know what I mean? You figure it out. And that was a huge pivotal moment because that was kind of our submitting the flag on the moon, for Twine. Like that's been a giant billboard for us. It's a community component. Everyone knows us because of that building in downtown. Yeah. all the events were tied to, so it was a big one.
That's yeah, man. I think that's where it's at. Like, you've got to. I see so many times where like something will come up like that, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, if I pass up on this, it could be 5 years before something like this comes on, if ever, you know."
Ever, yeah.
And you're like, "I don't have the money." This is the first thing goes through. I don't have the money to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to make this work. I don't have the people to do this.
Yeah, and we didn't either. I mean, several times we've made those decisions, and if it was solely based on money, we would have been totally screwed.
Do you? I had this mindset shift a few years ago where, and I'll just kind of dumb this down as simple as I can. It's like, all right, I know I've got to map this much money for rent, this much money. It's like, this is what I've got to have to get there. And at some point I realized, you know what? I was like, no, that's not how I'm going to get ahead. It's like, I've got to realize this is what's available. This is the opportunity. Now I have to go find a way to make that happen. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying?
100%. No, that's a big one
and
too.
I think that's really, for me, that was the game changer. Was like, if I'm ever going to grow, it's like, I've got to find a way to get to that spot.
Yeah.
Because you can always talk yourself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to be never enough time, never enough money, never enough people, never enough whatever, never enough comfort, safety. It's like, it's like, all right, you've got to venture out to that edge.
Yeah, no, you do. It's not always pretty sometimes. I mean, it's, there's those sleepless nights or those like questioning yourself all the time, or, and then in hindsight, you're like, wow, that really did work out. We're really smart or something. We made a smart decision. You're like, dude, it could have absolutely put us under. Yeah. So it's like, you look back sometimes, and I think you have to be in the moment for some of those opportunities, which is a scary thing. We've always been self-financed too. So when we make a decision based on the future and taking on more responsibility, it's always super serious and important because, we don't have some huge thing backing us. We are our own, bank, if you will.
That's good.
Which is good. It's been a good way to look. We've gone lean and mean, and we've always tried to really be smart in that regard, because I feel like debt, high debt is what takes out a lot of small businesses.
It's I gotta have capital, man. You gotta have some stuff to work with.
Yeah.
Here's a question, and because I know, like I said, I know you're from the comic shop, and I know how big a kid you are at heart.
Yes.
You're like such a big kid. You're probably up there with me as far as like, man, I just find all this stuff so fun. And I don't know Brandon as well, but I'm pretty sure he's probably the same way to a degree. At what point did you go, all right, I can't be a kid in this? Like, this can't be like a side hustle. I can't be a kid. I got to be like, when did you know, all right, this is a grown up decision? Because I've sat down with you, man, and the switch turns on. When it's business, it's business,
Yeah.
And I see that.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear, because I feel like I have to remind myself sometimes that this is like not fun, because it's like there's a lot of responsibility and hardships, but it's at the end of the day, it is a fun thing that we've created. We've got a cool space. We've got cool, I mean, we're printing T-shirts. It's like, it's not rocket science, and it's a lot of times it's we're helping propel someone else's brand, for someone else's business, and I think that's really cool too. So that's funny you say. I mean, I definitely try to have a level of professionalism, but I'm also like, I'm a big nerd. I like to joke. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to take it too seriously too,
right?
Because I feel like you lose something. Because I mean, it's all about, you want to make money and make clients happy, but it's never been about the money for me ever, which I think is a big thing too. Like I've always been able to provide, and I feel like I now can provide a great life for me and my family, but I never that was never the end goal. I just been kind of grinding it because I didn't know what else to do but grind it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, my dad was always an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. I've just always had that kind of mentality. I had to do it for myself and be my own boss, and I've never been good with authority or someone telling me what to do. For every job I've had, I'm like the worst employee ever, and I know that. So like, I had to be, be the one hard on myself, to keep it going, keep motivated, and it's it hadn't always been easy, but
when you got that artistic mind, you know, because I feel like I've got that too. And sometimes it's hard to sit down and like, all right, I got to think numbers. I've got to think this.
Yeah.
You know, because that's not natural.
It's not.
It's not natural
and
at all.
that's where having a good partner comes in play, because I will say that about Brandon. So Brandon, we are yin and yang.
That's awesome.
And it's great. And I'm way more optimistic and creative, and kind of like I'm a lot more of, I would say, the face, just in the sense that I'm sit on various boards, and I'm very much entrenched in the downtown community and stuff. But I mean, if it wasn't for him and being the way he is, and analytical and numbers guy, you know, who knows what position we'd be. I think without each other too, I don't think we would be where we are, because I think you always are pushing and pulling each other, you know, to level ground. I think it's super important, because you know, you can't do this on your own in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I've you know, I've come to a point, even with my business, where I've been kind of running solo for a while, and it's like, no, I can't grow, I can't build and try to do all the work all the time. There's only so much capacity you can handle. And I think that's super important to recognize that in yourself, because it's so easy to be like, all right, well, I can't, you know, build a lifestyle for yourself. And it's like, well, I can't really handle bringing on somebody else and be responsible for that too, because so much comes with it. So much that's not even written out comes with it. But that is where you grow. It's like, you've got to be able to, and then finding the people that can do it.
Yeah, the delegation's super important, but very difficult. I mean, I still struggle with that. With on the sales front, I'm the owner of the company, but I'm one of the biggest salesmen. I mean, it's a byproduct of how we grew so grassroots. I mean, I'm very connected to a lot of my clients. I mean, we take care of everyone in a really, you know, intimate capacity. I mean, we're real hands-on. And so that's been interesting, you know, as we've kind of trained salespeople, or, you know, had our even receptionists, you know, take, you know, reorders or things that can kind of help free up time in my day, that I can focus on something else. Because you do get stuck in being an employee of your business and not working on the business.
Yes.
And that's really difficult to I think, navigate. That's kind of, I would say right now, that's our biggest hurdle for the future growth, because we know, like, we're really comfortable where we are right now. We've got 2 or 3 great locations. We've got great staff, but it's like, what's next though? What's sustainable? Like, where are we going to be in 5 years? You know, Franklin's a huge growing market. The real estate market. I mean, the commercial, you know, buildings and things that we need to operate, they're drying up. And so if we need to expand or we need to build more, it's like, what does that look like? Where do we go? How does that change the dynamic, you know, of our business? So those are like the future problems that we're trying to navigate.
Yeah, I hate to hear that about Franklin, because it was, I mean, up until recently, been such a homegrown community, and now because of its popularity, it's like, you know, the rising cost of being there and taxes. It's just, it's tough, but like, you know, I think there's something to be said about being able to build your business in a community.
It is. I think it's huge, and I think I can't imagine us being successful in the way that we are in anywhere else.
Yeah, I used to, when I worked in the college environment, I used to work with a company out of Bowling Green called Blue Cotton.
Oh yeah,
and they started out of the dorm room.
Yeah,
I don't know if you ever cross paths with those guys.
I've been to their shop, and we're very familiar with Blue Cotton. If you're in our industry, or if you went to Bowling Green, you know those guys for sure.
And they were. I watched them kind of. We got in with them. This has been years ago. We got in with them. I think they were just in one space. They just opened a space there on Broadway, in Bowling Green. Then they eventually moved out to like sort of an industrial place and have a bigger warehouse and print shop.
They've got a huge facility now.
Yeah, and it's been years since I worked with them, but when I met with them, Union College became their biggest account.
Really?
One of them, because I introduced the CFO of the college, and he was the one responsible for buying all the merch for the bookstore.
That's awesome.
And I mean, and you got to think, it's like not just t-shirts, bro. It's t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, bags. Like, there was a lot. I mean, I'd go into his office, and he would just have like all those example stuff. Just, it was everywhere. I was like, man, get that thing, buy that. That looks cool. Do that, you know. And I got a phone call. I remember because I I worked in campus life, and so I was just buying like T-shirts for like to give out to kids, and then I introduced the CFO, and he made his big orders. And I remember, like, as that year went on, or so, I got a phone call from those guys. Like, they called me. Hey, man, he goes, look, we just want to personally say thank you for introducing us to Union, because they've really, and literally because of that, I remember watched them go from this one small space to a bigger space. And it was one of those things that helped level up. And you just never know.
And that was their opportunity that they seized, that was brought to them by you. And that's,
and I may not be the only one, but I know that helped.
No, 100%.
For somebody to make that phone call and say, hey, man, you really, thank you. To say thank you.
Well, your story is exactly why I hold so many of my clients very dear to my heart, because without them, we would not be where we are. And I'm very aware of that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it because, that's amazing. And I've had similar guys that just like that have literally, they gave us an opportunity, and they are the sole reason why it jumped us ahead.
Yeah.
And you keep going, and then something else jumps. And then it's cool, man. And that's why relationships are so important. And I think the community component is so big. And I feel like you still feel that, and you still get that here. And I'm fighting very hard to maintain that and keep that. And that's why I think I'm so involved, in the downtown, and sit on the Heritage Foundation board and everything else. Like, I just really care about Franklin. And there's a lot of good people moving here too, and a lot of good businesses, and it's going to keep, all ships will rise together. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to lose the charm of downtown, and because the tree lighting in downtown Franklin just happened last Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a Hallmark movie.
Oh,
I mean, there's 30,000 people, and the tree lights up, and there's fake snow, and I mean, you're looking around like, what? Where am I right now?
It's crazy.
And so we want to keep that, you know. So I think it's important.
They've actually filmed a few Hallmark movies down there.
They did. I mean, Justin Bieber's Christmas song you hear on the radio every time. I think there's a music video of him in downtown Franklin.
Downtown Franklin is that sneaky, shows up in a lot of films.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, that's man. I remember the first time I went to Franklin. It was, our brother moved here like 20 years ago, and I went, and we went to there was this place, and it's not there now. It was right there on it's not the river. Is it the Harpers River that runs there?
Oh, yeah.
Right when, if you're coming in from your shop into downtown, you cross that bridge.
Yeah.
On the left there used to be...
There was Dotson's.
Dotson's.
Oh, we all miss Dotson's. All the Franklin people miss Dotson's.
And I don't know what happened to that. I'm assuming the people that ran it just aged out.
I think something to
that
effect. I think.
But I remember going to that. Now you go in, and it's like all these sort of commercial businesses, and they're starting to put apartment complexes, and it's starting to be a city, like a big city.
Yeah. The vibe is changed, and it will continue to change if people don't say, hey, we've got to keep it this way.
And I think that's important to say out loud.
I think so too.
Because, and I know you've moved down here to the Hill, just because it's a little easier to afford rent. It's a growing community as well. It's still in Williamson County. You're not the only a lot of people have done that and still 100%. Live, but your businesses, you grew up there. Franklin's home.
It is,
and I think it's important for people, and they need to realize that it's up to them to raise their voices and say, "Look, man, we love the fact that we want to grow and progress, but maybe we need to pump the brakes a little bit." And they have that voice. They need to know they have that voice.
Yeah. And as you get older, I mean, I really take note of all that, and how important it is to vote and know who your aldermans are, and it's just the stuff you're like, I don't care. It's really important, and it's
probably more important on this level than 100%. It is on the federal,
100%.
The national level,
because it's the change you can actually see in your community. You literally have.
I think they say it actually affects you like 80% more than anything else.
I would agree,
because
the president, whoever's in office. It is what it is. There's always just going to be a lot of crap.
Think about it. I mean, here in Tennessee, it's like the highways are maintained by the state, and I actually think that they're voted on by the counties to allocate funds.
I think you're right. Like what projects get
funded.
It's
like why Spring Hill, like the entrance into Spring Hill, it's like probably never going to get approved. Even it may be so far down the pipe, It's crazy. It's crazy to see all the growth here in the Nashville area and Tennessee, and realize that, like, man, they just weren't prepared for this growth. I mean, the infrastructure was like, the highways weren't.
And you've lived down here for a long time too, right? I've been here 8 years now.
I've been here. I've been in Spring Hill. What year is this? 20, almost 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, the infrastructure even 4 years ago.
Well, Toby's lived down. My twin has lived down here about 8 years.
Okay.
In Spring Hill because he wasn't Franklin.
Yeah,
he was over on the west side of Franklin. And he moved down here for got a bigger house. At the end of the day, that's what it was. But he, I watched this community. Like I remember coming in here and going, man, it's so tough to get in here. And that was like 6 years ago. Now it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I don't know when they open up this interchange if it's going to make it any better because it's just so many.
So.
There's so much building going on out there.
Yeah.
And
Buckner. I live off Buckner where all that's happening, and it's it's crazy right there.
Yeah, I'm over off where the two Buckners kind of in that area. So it's like sometimes I'll sneak out that way to try to go to Nashville, and sometimes it's all right. It just depends on what time of day you go.
I know. It's
there was actually a car wreck right outside of my neighborhood this morning, so where people were trying to cross the intersection because there's no stoplight.
Yeah.
It is, and they're actually building. I don't know if it's an apartment building complex or if it's another neighborhood. Either way, there's more residential housing going next into my neighborhood, and it's going to be much more congested.
Yeah.
I mean, so my point being, it's like I think it's really cool to know another thing that you do is you actually not only run a business and operate in the community, but you're involved in that community in a sense of like I'm trying to affect real change, whether it's through you're on a couple of boards. You said,
yeah. We've been always members of the Downtown Franklin Association, which is a great group. It's all based in businesses that are in the 16 block, like historic overlay area of downtown. And through that, I was put on the Heritage Foundation board because I represent the DFA on that board. So, that's been great. And been on the Unite Williamson board with the mayor for the stuff like that. It's just super important. I enjoy it. I like the connection and just kind of being involved with those people. So doing a lot of
talk
fun.
about that just a little bit, expand a little bit on the sense that I know it doesn't necessarily directly bring Twine growth, but at the same time it's super important to the growth of Twine, how it affects that. How do you see that when you think about being on these boards?
Well, I mean,
from your business
I think it's
perspective.
allowed that, when things have arisen, they think of us first, the kind of deal. Like, and we're already entrenched in them. We're communicating with them already on so many things. Like, an example would be just recently all the new banners that you'll see in downtown Franklin we designed.
Oh, cool.
Which was cool. It was a whole new initiative. So I actually donated all the design for that. We just wanted to do it and have a new footprint and visual element when you're coming through. So every holiday banner you'll see, everything that says historic, Franklin 1799, like all those were designed by us. And,
I'll print those too.
Yeah, banners. Yeah. So what's cool is it's just a little footprint. It's a little thing that I can be proud of when I'm going through there, and it connects our business to Franklin. And again, it's just it really truly that is a huge community piece. And anything. I mean, even the city hit me up like, oh my gosh, we need a sticker for the big plug that plugs in for the tree. And I'm like, I got you. We print that right off our new printer because we can do that in house now. And so,
that's awesome.
Ran it out, and the city comes, picks it up, slaps it on there. And it's been good, man. I mean,
how hard is it to get that footprint, man?
It's taken a long time. I mean, to be real,
you have to nurture it.
You do nurture it. And it's been a baby we've been nurturing for a long time, I feel like. But it's really paid off. And I feel like, you do have to have good product though. I mean, I feel like we've always put quality product out. We've always taken care of people. Luckily, I think our brand has built a good relation or good represent. What am I trying to say here?
Relationship.
Well, yes. I'm blanking.
I see what you're saying. Like like you represent.
Yeah. I don't think I've had enough coffee this morning.
I can fix that problem.
Yeah. So anyways, we've built over time I guess just we're those guys now.
Yeah.
Everyone knows us. Everyone knows that we really give a crap. It's not just like, again, it's not just about every dollar. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we genuinely do care about Franklin, the community. So, when they approach us to do those things, it's not a tall ask. We're there to jump in and help where we can and get it done. So
I can't tell you how many, like, especially the relationship side of like what we do. It's so, this comic shop, it's like, we feel responsible for the community in some sense, because like I had parents bring their kids in here on a Saturday afternoon and go, well, we had a good soccer game, and then the reward was to come to the comic store. It's like,
it's awesome.
Okay, wow. All right. Like, not something you think about,
Yeah.
That may buy $5 worth of Pokemon cards and that's it, but that was the reward. But, the long term is these kids are going to go, man, remember we went to the comic shop and we used to get Pokemon cards and it was cool, and we used to hang out there with our buddies and trade cards. That's all we really wanted to do here.
Absolutely. I have fond memories of doing that in Franklin, riding our bikes from Forest Crossing to Outer Limits over there. Yeah. And we would get Pokemon cards and comics, and I mean, I think it's super important, and kids need that, because it's not all about being stuck on your Xbox or iPad or whatever. It's like I feel like those are the things that are going to keep them connected and have their sense of nostalgia that we have so dear to us.
It was interesting too. Like, a lady came in here the other day, and she's like, she had brought her grandson in. She's like, I'm just trying to get him off that Switch.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. So I was like, here, you can buy a pack of Pokemon, because he was looking at the singles. I was like, you can buy a pack. She goes, oh, okay. And she goes, well, whatever, just to get him off that gaming system. I guess he was I guess he spends way too much time on it. But the kids that do come in and do the Pokemon, they seem pretty well-rounded. They do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but for the most part, they know more about the card than I do.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah. It's really.
I can just tell them what they cost because I can look it up on the computer. But for the most part, it's like I don't know what's a cool character and what's not. Now, I will say this with the new games, I've been able to, because I kind of got in on the ground floor, I've been able to kind of understand that these cards are better than this because of how they play and what art is on them. It's crazy how much that art that's on those arts really does affect. It's the same with comic books. Like, if you have a cover that's great art, that's kind of what sells more than they get the stories.
The cover. I mean,
it's an artist driven market
background. So like I'm a sucker for good covers,
comic
covers. Yeah. So I get that. It's package design, all that good stuff.
How much of that do you get to do?
Well, I mean,
do you do any package designing?
We've done some. Yeah. I mean, we don't obviously we don't manufacture that kind of stuff now, but we can produce and outsource those things and design those things. I don't click a mouse to design anymore for several years, which has been a good and bad thing at times, I feel like, but I still will cultivate and kind of, I'll sketch out something that I think I want my designer to do for a client and give it to him. But he's way more talented than I've ever been or ever would be as a graphic designer.
I think that's a hallmark of success, is finding people that can do what you do, but 100%. Do it much better.
Yeah, and I think accepting that and knowing that. Like, I don't even need to pretend I'm a graphic designer anymore. I'm not. I know design and I can, see good design, or I can help, guide him in a certain way maybe for a client. But I think knowing your place and staying in your lane sometimes is not a bad thing when you can delegate, So
how hard has it been? Because I've seen you sometimes show me like, man, this. Let me show you this picture or this poster or this sticker. Or you just want to show me something. It's like the wackiest art. I'm like, and it's almost wacky cartoon art sometimes. And I'm like, all right. Then I get to thinking, like, I just got designs logos for professional businesses, and I'm like, it's completely different mindset. Like, how hard do you find that to translate, or is it simple?
No, well, that's a good question, because you do have to pivot your creative mind so much in what we do, because we're so weird in the sense that we do everything. We design and produce so many different things, and our goal has always been to control as much in-house as we can, and that's why you mentioned the new space. We just added a large format printing. So we're able to do, stickers and banners and coroplast signs and all that kind of stuff in-house now. because the quality, obviously, of the product, but also the control, like being able to play with those things and see, okay, well, will this die cut? If I do some crazy sticker for somebody, you know, what's it going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think what's funny, our designer, he's forced to make those quick pivots. Like we'll design, again, like a high-end logo for some law firm in Nashville, and then he's got to next design a competition cheerleading shirt for Poplar Grove. You know what I mean? So it's wacky. You jump around a lot. So he's very good at that, and you kind of have to be, you know. And we because we manufacture too, when we design, we really are thinking, you know, what is this going to look like slapped on a mug or on a pin, or so you have to kind of like, you know, break it down.
Yeah.
In what you're designing for. So
I think it's a little easier now because you can like take a logo and stick it on like a 3D render, like a, you know, I can go into a website and just put that logo on a mug and go, okay, that looks okay.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there's a lot of those. That's nice.
Because I think about those things. I think the branding's so important because, you know, brand recognition is clutch, man.
It is,
You
man.
want, because that's what, you know, people don't probably sit and think about why they would go buy a Coca-Cola versus a Pepsi-Cola. You know, they don't really think about it. They don't go, well, why do I buy Coke? Is it because it's red and it has this logo, or is it about the taste? And it's really not. It's more of a recognizable thing in the sense of, hey, when I was growing up, man, we always had Coke, not Pepsi, not RC. It was Coke. You know,
Yeah, it becomes a part of your identity. I think,
it does
as an individual, but also I think what's cool is the brands I think that you support and like really are a reflection of who you are in a lot of ways.
What are some of your favorite brands out there, man?
Oh man,
Because
Put me on
my
the spot.
tastes have changed over time. you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Well, in what regard? There's so many different, I guess, variables there.
I don't know. It's just like, you know, you think about, man, when I think about a really cool brand, I think about,
Okay, I tell you one, just because I'm the sucker.
and it doesn't
for
have to be a big national,
Yeah,
you know.
So there's I'm wearing it right now. Howler Brothers. Have you ever heard of Howler Brothers? I'm obsessed with them. And
What? Okay.
They're out of Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas.
It's a clothing company that it's kind of like it's, you know, flannels and just good guy wear. It's all dude stuff. But I love it, and their branding's really cool, and they've done such a good job. We've actually, you know, kind of mimicked or taken some inspiration and designed some products for our own retail, you know, based on just some aesthetics and color choices and things that they did. Really, really well done clothing company for men, and it fits well, which is always positive.
I know the biggest thing I have when I come into your shop is like, all right, John, we got to find some tall stuff. And you're just like, look, man, they just don't have a lot. There's just not a lot out there. I was like, dude, I can find them on the internet.
Yeah.
But I really have tried a lot of these brands. There's one out there called American Tall. So it's,
I've heard of them.
I just saw another one advertised on my feed the other day it's literally like, instead of big and tall, it's like tall and thin, you know, which is, because when you think about big and tall, it's not big or tall. It's big and tall. That's really what it is.
I'm sure for skinny tall guys, it's super
So it's
hard.
usually always like a 4XLT is what you're going to find at like Dillard's, you know, or like Kohl's. Like it's going to be a big and tall item. But if you're like thin and tall, like it's a little harder to come by.
Yeah.
And in my world, you know, in the basketball world, there were a lot of tall, thin dudes, you know. And I remember back in the day, we just always had to wear double X's because they were always baggy. And that's why like early on baggy clothes were so popular because that's all it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't because that's what we chose. It was like, this is what we got, you know? And like, I remember we used to sag our shorts a lot because we always had short shorts because our legs were so much longer. So, you know, I get this a lot, man. And the clothing world was like, what do you, I literally had like women stop me and go, hey, let me ask you a question. I'm like, all right. And then like, where do you get your pants? And I'm like, is this your pickup line? And they're like, and they're like, and I'm like, she goes, I'm asking because I've got a son and he's 6'5", 6'6", and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, this is the places I go because I know that they have long enough pants. You know, and you know, crazy enough, places like Buckle, they always have long pants, because it has a couple extra inches. You know, and it really makes a difference when you're trying to buy clothes. Sure. But most stuff I have to order on the internet because you can't just walk into like a retail store and go, all right, just to like pick up a shirt.
Yeah.
You know, like if I just want a hoodie for the day or something, or just something quick, you know, you can't do that. You got to like shop it. Same thing with shoes. It's like I have to.
Oh, I'm sure.
Everything comes online. If it either fits or it don't, you know, you can return it obviously. But for me, that clothing thing is so huge. So when I do see brands out there that like solicited, I'm looking, you know, because they're catering to me.
Yeah.
You know,
No, that's smart, and it's a shame that the wholesale industry for like what we do with screen printing industry, it's those niche markets that don't have as many.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough, man. You'll have a few brands that'll really kill it for a while, and then they taper off or they go away.
There's just not enough demand for it.
Yeah.
You know, or they can't sustain.
With tall and youth, even youth. And there's a lot of youth options, but not nearly the type of variety that you can get an adult, obviously. So.
Sure. I mean, you got to go with those mainstream. It's why I was like, if you go get a pair of Jordans, like the 10s and 11s are going to go first, you know. Believe it or not, though, the 14s sell out really fast.
Yeah?
Yeah, because a lot of basketball players wear them.
It's true.
So it's just knowing those little tricks. Like, it's like, everybody's like, oh, man, it must be great to be tall. It's like, it's great to be tall. It is until you get in the seat of an airplane, you know, or, you know, you're looking for pants, you know. That's always been it's always a challenge, you know.
Bet.
And you can never find stuff on sale. It's like, you got to pay the premium. So I have to say the world's a little biased towards tall people.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because think about it. When I buy a XXL shirt from you, there's another $1 or $2 tacked on because there's more fabric being used.
That's true.
So, like I said, I've always kind of jokingly, but you know, I was like, man, I always got to pay a couple extra bucks more for the big clothes. Yeah. You know, but no, I think like the brand. I've always thought you had a cool brand. I know I first heard of. I was still in Georgia at the time, and I can't remember what I was trying to get. But I was asking my brother, because where do you get these clothes at? He goes, I'm getting them from a place called Twine. I think you were still pretty young back then. I'm like, oh, and I guess he had met you through the school.
Yeah, we do a lot of school business, which we're
Franklin.
Very thankful for.
Yeah. And then when I opened the shop, you just came in one day, and you're like, oh, you're the guy, you know. And then it just kind of worked out. So obviously, it made a lot of sense for us to get our clothes from you guys too. So which we obviously appreciate. We don't buy a ton, but it's like it is helpful to be able to have that local resource.
Yeah.
Because, you know, iHeart Spring Hill is full of stuff like that. It's like, or I'm sure whatever the Franklin equivalent of that is like, where do I go to get this? Where do I go to get that?
Yeah. And
it's as much as there are Chamber of Commerces out there and Main Street organizations, it's sometimes really difficult and some people don't just want to go to Walmart. Yeah. They don't want to go to Lowe's. They want to find somebody that can give them that special attention that you're talking about when it comes to sales.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think that's one thing we really strive to do. And it's why we cater to everybody. I mean, we have low minimums and we'll print you 25 shirts or we'll print 5,000, you know? Yeah. So it's, that's always been important to me too, because helping smaller businesses and, you know, the landscape guys that have 6 dudes. I mean, they they get double shirts and that's an order for them for the year. And like, that's cool. Like we'll help you out. Or we'll print, you know, the big 5K, whatever. So, yeah.
My brother finally had to do that with his fencing business. He was like, he finally, all right, so we got to get some uniform shirts, T-shirts. Yeah. I think they got hats too, but I know they got the T-shirts, which is, and he picked the weirdest color. It was like almost like a teal blue.
Oh yeah, it stands out there though. I'm sure.
I don't know why. He said he did it out of. I think one day he just realized they were always wearing this color, randomly wearing this color. So they were like, "Let's go with this color." Anyway,
I love that.
I tell you, man, and this is something I'm going to pitch to you too. Is like I am no good at coming up with names to businesses or like things like that. I don't know why. When it comes, I just have this like mental block. I'm like, what would I call that? But man, if you've got that as a service, like you should sell it. I would tell you how many people go. Even if you just charge, look, we can help you figure this out. Because there are companies that do.
Oh
that,
yeah. There's definitely full on more branding agency style stuff, which we do a little bit of that, but we've mainly it's visual branding.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, that's always fun. Like that's very hard. The name thing is hard. You should have seen. We had a whole book full of names and logos and all kinds of stuff for Twine, way back in the day, and we just always kept circling back to Twine and just keeping that name. It just always kind of stuck. And then we did a rebrand and redesigned our logo and more of like a old school. Gas station style logo. We wanted this logo to look like it's been around since the 70s. You know what I mean? Like just an iconic, simple, clean, So I think
it does look like when I do think Twine logo, I think of it's kind of like a combo of a couple of things. I think of Chevron, the old Chevron logos, and then like 76.
Yeah.
The colors, I think that's what invokes that. And something like Napa or something comes to mind or something.
Yeah.
Which is not gas, but it is automotive. But I do like that old retro look. And I think it's cool that you came up with, it's an acronym or something?
Acronym,
yeah. And at the same time, but Twine also is...
Yeah, it kind of had a crafty feel to it.
When we named this comic store, it was like, I was like, Joe, we wouldn't call this. He goes, just name it after the comic book. I was like, okay. That's why it's called Cadets, because it's named after my comic book, Chrono Cadets. And also you could use the robot as a sort of a mascot.
Yeah,
but
I think it's always I think having that's important.
I tell you what, what's cool is I was driving up 65 not too long ago. I was going somewhere in Nashville, and this van passed me. It was like a big family van, and on the back of it had a bunch of stickers, and one of them was a Cadets Toys and Comics sticker, and you're like, all right, man.
Nice.
So somebody's out there representing the brand,
That's very cool.
That is like a cool thing.
It's very cool, and I see shirts we've printed all over.
Yeah,
and I think that's the coolest thing. I've been in Disney and seen the shirt I've printed. I've been in, all over. I mean, vacations or whatever, and you're like, oh my God, that's one of our retail shirts, or it's.
Do you ever like have those moments when you see that and you go, God, I remember how long it took to put that together?
Sometimes, yeah. Or like, wow, we've come a long way from that shirt. You know what I mean? Like you look back and you're like, you can always improve, which we definitely try to do, and I think that's always important to evolve and keep on getting better, and not getting complacent, in what you're doing.
I've got logos out there that I've made. I've sort of put together, and I didn't get paid for them, which is dumb. But whole another story. But I one of them is the business has gained so much traction. Like I go to these in the martial arts world, and I go out there, and I'm like, I see like all these random parents and kids and promoters and on signage. And it's like, I made that logo.
That's awesome.
You go, I made that, but like. Nobody's ever going to know.
Yeah.
And I do think but there's part of me that's like, oh, that's really cool. And there's part of me like, man, you're so stupid. You should have got paid for that. But it is cool to see that people are out there representing your brand.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the Twine logo, but they're representing your business.
Yeah.
Which is kind of hard to do in the t-shirt business because you can't necessarily like embed the Twine logo on a piece of clothing somewhere.
Yeah, true. Our retail stuff has a little thing on it, but yeah, I mean, it's I would never purposely put my logo in someone's art,
No.
That wouldn't be good.
So let me ask you, man, you've been doing this a hot minute now, about what, 15 years?
No, about 12, 13, yeah.
12, 13 years. Okay, so what's been your biggest, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions here. What's been your biggest challenge, whether it's personal or professional? And it could be both.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges in all of this has always been staff. I think employees are the hardest part of a small business. Okay. I can deal with the late nights. I can deal with the problems and the stress. Man, the staff, if you don't have a good staff behind you and the people in the right positions, it can be really, really difficult. I think that's been a more constant, I think, variable in small business. We're lucky enough to have some key people that have been with us for years and years and years that have kind of really changed the game for Twine. But I'd say that's a tough one.
How conscious or how deliberate were you in building the culture of your company?
I think pretty intentional. I mean, I think based on it too, just my personality, and also we want to be taken seriously, but we don't want to be too serious. We don't have a dress code. We're a t-shirt company. We want people to feel comfortable in their environment and at work. We want you to not leave every day and hate your life.
Yeah.
So I think that's I think having a safe place where people can be themselves and also rag on each other and they can put us in our place. I think that's important too. And people feel comfortable that they can do that.
You ever had to fire anybody?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. It's never fun.
No.
It's always, it's like my least favorite thing ever to do, I think.
It's like that scene in Moneyball. It's like someone's going to talk to you. Do you have an HR person?
Oh, not really. I mean, our HR person is pretty much always ends up being me and Brandon at the end of whatever situation. But we've got a guy that's pretty much part of his role is delegating and facilitating those kind of things. Deals with payroll, intake, or new employee, and all that. But firing sucks. Hiring sucks too, honestly. But firing's real bad.
Hiring is suck. It is. You think, oh, I'm going to have all this team, and they're going to be great, and they're going to be awesome. But man, it's like if you've never lived in a dorm room environment where you've got to deal with 1,000 personalities, like you don't know what people are like until you've lived with them.
100%, and they can, you can put on a face in an interview or say all the right things, and then you're like, whoa, this person is not qualified at all, or crazy, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think what's always hard for me in those situations is I do try to take on such a personal connection I'm way more personable, I guess, with those people than some people, so it's like I always take it more to heart, I guess, or I don't know. It just feels, I don't know.
It's personal.
It's personal. I take it to heart. It hurts. It sucks, and we've had to let go some people we obviously didn't want to at times. I mean, based on where we were in business. I mean,
that's a tough thing.
I used to have a really good buddy, and we're still friends to this day. He was a sales guy forever, and we were in a position where, we hired too many people at one time, and we didn't realize it, until kind of months into the situation. You're like, dang, this isn't a good path. Like, we got to figure something out, and we had to let him go. And you have to, and that's, again, it's a hard business decision. But it's like acknowledging those things and making sure that you right the wrongs or like change your path so it does keep you going forward. I think is important. Yeah. Because you can sit there and bleed till there's nothing left,
You can.
And that's not good either.
No.
So
you got to learn to cut off amputate that limb.
You got to. Yeah. And it's not always fun.
Never fun.
But it's a necessity.
Sometimes it's like I did think I read I can't remember where I read this, but I remember a guy talking about the article was about, or was it a book? I can't remember when I was writing this, but it was about this guy was a CEO, and he was just like, he dreaded going to work to the point where he was like sick and like couldn't stand it, and like,
oh jeez,
it was because the culture was so toxic, and like he finally had to sit down and just amputate all these employees that were like making the culture of the business. And once he did it, like it was like the business turned a whole different corner. Yeah. Because there is part of you who wants to be loyal to people. Yeah. And have them be loyal to you, and it's like there's comfort in knowing certain people, but I mean, I've been on both sides of that. Yeah. Where it's like, oh, you got to get let go. When I left the college world, it wasn't by choice. And then I've had plenty of years to reflect on that and go, man, what could I have done differently? How was I not valuable enough to because you have, sometimes when you're an employee, you think, oh, well, I'm indispensable. Mm-hmm. They're not going to get rid of me. But truth is like, you can get let go of whether you fit into the plan or not. It's what it comes down to, especially when you get new leadership in. Yeah. And that part is tough, because that's, like I said, I look at it and I'm going, okay, well, my own ego told me that I was better than I was, and then come down to it, it was like, guess I wasn't. Yeah. But, on the flip side of that, it's like, man, it's like you've got to realize, like, once you get to a certain point in your business, it's definitely more about you, especially when you start bringing on employees that are dependent upon you to fund their lifestyles and exist and have a purpose and have a job and a thing to do. And that's a whole different feeling and a whole different responsibility. And all of a sudden it's like, you've got to realize, like, is this person in the plan? Are they working towards that goal? Yeah. And I think there's that fine line there where you sort of have this line of personability and accountability, and you got to do both. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, definitely.
Because, and that's where I think we go back to that whole phrase of like, when do you stop being a kid about this? Mm-hmm. because you do want it to be fun. You want it to be people come in and have this great culture, but it ain't always like that.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow when you're in that too. When you're living it, you're trying to keep that mindset, and then you're slapped with a situation or something arises. You're like, oh man, yeah, this is serious. We gotta, these people, yeah. So I don't know.
Do you have a lot of processes?
We do.
Like if you were to get, hopefully this won't happen, hit by a bus, like the ship's going to keep.
Oh yeah. Yes, and I think that's one thing we always did very early on. I think it's another huge key thing that I would tell anyone with a small business or starting a small business is, even when we were in a shed in my backyard, we had a CPA, we had a lawyer that looked at everything. Did we have the money necessarily to pay those people to do those things all the time? No, but we figured it out because we knew how important it was to be legitimate. And I think that's been huge. And so, yeah, like just everything is ironclad. I mean, I'm 37, but I've got more, disability insurance set up and retirement and my will's set up. I got a trust. I got all the things an adult would need if, like, I get hit by a bus when I leave here. My wife's gonna be good. The company will keep going. My son will be taken care of.
Yeah.
I can rest assured that I've at least set myself up or my family's self set up for success. I think it's very important, and because it could all go away tomorrow. I don't know, but I'm gonna keep grinding it and to ensure that it doesn't. But yeah, I think that's very important to have those strategies or those like a key man policy with my business partner. What does it look like if I want to get out of this in 2 years or 3 years, or what does it look like if one of us gets sick or whatever? Because we have built such a key thing that to keep going. And I'd like to think we're building a legacy type business in Franklin. Like I've got friends that own businesses that they've inherited from what their grandfather built, that then their dad built. That I think that's really cool. And
right.
I'm not necessarily don't know if my son will be interested in doing this or not, but I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but it's kind of one of those things I think about.
Yeah. So where are you heading, man? Where are you heading with all this?
I don't know, man. I think that's part of.
What do you
journey.
think about when you're like sitting there and like, man, if we did something, but.
Like we've got ideas of kind of what we might think a future, looks like with a bigger space or an all-encompassing, building where we're kind of everything's back in one location kind of deal, and it's more, I don't know, like we have a basic. I think it's important to have a basic outline or synopsis, not synopsis, but I don't know, bullet points of maybe things you want to try to hit.
Yeah.
But also know that from the experience of doing this, like you have to be able to pivot at any time and go off those railroad tracks if you need to. Yeah. And I don't think you can totally have it mapped out. I really don't. I think you have to be able to see it. The projection thing I think really comes in, like manifesting the future you want to try to achieve.
You do that a lot?
Yeah. I always have. Always been really in tune with that, I feel like.
That was like Arnold Schwarzenegger's thing.
Yeah.
Have you seen his documentary?
I have. And I really think, and there's a lot of truth to that. Okay. And it can be cheesy maybe to some people, but I really think if you can't see it, if you can't visualize it, it's never going to happen. I really believe that. And I think if you set goals, obtainable goals, but goals in if you can, as long as you can see yourself getting there, then you'll do the work to make it happen. At least some people will, And I think that's again where I don't know everyone, not everyone thinks that way. Not everyone's gonna set themselves on that path. But I think that and I think it comes into that whole destiny thing kind of a little bit, or the whole. The good Lord's out there pointing you in a certain path, and you have to be able to make those choices when they're presented to you.
Well, I think you made a valid point there, and that's the stuff I kind of look for in this podcast is those little nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah,
and I think that's the important thing because, you hear this a lot. Oh, if you just believe in yourself or you set a vision for yourself, you're gonna get there. You're gonna get there. But I think oftentimes the stuff that gets overlooked or gets bypassed or people get skipped is you got to put the work in.
That's absolutely key.
And I mean, I think that when I watched that documentary about Arnold Schwarzenegger, I thought, man, that's one of the two things he said. You got to, number one, he's like, you got to have a vision. You got to have the vision. And he goes, you got to go to work. You got to go every day and go to work. Like, it's like, and he says, and I think the cool thing about it was, he was like, if you get up and go to work, you don't have time to be depressed. You know, it's like stuff like that, which I think is important too, because we always want to find the easiest path to success. And there really isn't.
No.
You know, and it really isn't. And even, you know, and success is defined very differently with different people. And
sure.
But I think these things hold true. Is like, if you can't visualize for yourself where you want to be and what you want to do, and you can't work to get there, and being able to discern enough to go, does this fit in any choices you make going forward? Does this fit into the vision?
Yeah.
And being able to go, no. And as cool as it is, and as exciting as it could be at the time, or fulfilling as it could be at the time, it's like, you may have to set that off to the side or discard it completely because it doesn't fit into the vision. Mm-hmm. I think those are super important truths to hold on to, you know?
I think so too.
All right, we're going to end this with something really fun, and I want you to talk about this because this is what I think is where your real passions lie. Talk about Toyturnia.
Oh man, yeah.
That's your Instagram page.
It is, yeah.
And it's super successful.
It's been fun.
It's like I'm blown away. Like how, like this is what you do just for fun.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like, you told me the other day you got an invite to go hang out with your hero. Yeah, and you didn't get to do it because you had commitments. But how cool is that?
It's cool, man. It's been fun, and like I love just being in here.
Yeah,
your
nerd stuff.
Yeah, it's I've been a long time collector. Honestly, I think comic books is what got me into graphic design. I mean, honestly, and art. My love of art as a young kid, being drawn to that, and even the packaging and everything. I just always kind of had that love. So yeah, I started Toyturnia as a fun outlet for my own personal collection. I would just like take pictures and be like, here's my Marvel stuff, or here's He-Man, or and it kind of evolved from there. I've built it decently and just out of just the cool community that's on Instagram.
Yeah.
And buying and selling toys all over and going to cons and meeting people, and it's been fun, man. So
now, do you have a big man cave?
I do. Okay. Yeah.
I've seen a few people's man caves, and they're pretty cool.
I do. I actually was working on mine this weekend because
do you have a lot of cases?
I've got a lot of I've got a lot of shelves. I installed a bunch of like floating shelves. I got a bunch of stuff, and
I went to my buddy's house, and he has a pretty epic toy collection. And some of it's, I think I was telling you about this. He has some vintage stuff, really good big Planet of the Apes section. But he has these, I think he called them bully cases, bully boy cases.
From IKEA.
From IKEA.
Yeah, those are like every collector.
I know.
Has those. I don't have any, but I know
figured
exactly
you would.
what they are.
I figured you would.
Yeah, I know.
Which it's like you go into his little man cave there, and it's like it's kind of a museum. It's like this. It's pretty cool,
and it's really pretty when people display them real cultivated like that.
His is very cultivated.
I like mine's very organized, but I like the chaos on my shelves. Like I really build almost like a I don't know, like a I mean, what would you call it? Like a just throwing everything in there, like a mixed bag of just graded with a loose figure with something unrelated. I mean, I love that, putting comics with it. If you come into my room, it's all just a big hodgepodge, but it makes sense to me. It's fun. So I like all the little stuff, like fitting them on the shelves and just creating.
I'm kind of like that too. If I put a display together, I want it to be like I don't want symmetry. Yeah. I want it to be some angles, a little offset. Just to maybe create a scene, maybe not, maybe to. I don't know. I think that's kind of where my head is too.
Yeah, like I love those cases with the beautiful sideshow figure in or something. That's the only thing. But for me, like I want to, like how many Ninja Turtles can I fit in there? You know what I mean? Like how many things can I put in that little square?
And that's your things. Your two biggest things are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Masters Universe.
Yeah, those are my two favorite things to collect.
Now, were you big into Ghostbusters?
Yeah, and Ghostbusters. I would say Ghostbusters would be at number 3 in there. Yeah, those top 3 toy lines. And then I'm a sucker for like I'm a big completionist with collecting, which is a bad thing in a lot of ways. But like, I'll like I'm a huge Toxic Crusaders fan too. I even have Toxic tattooed on me.
We got a Toxic Avenger #1 up there.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I have like the entire toy line, like every vehicle, every figure.
Yeah, I saw you got the Funko Pop in your office, and I saw it on the shelf at Target today.
The mask and just all the stuff. It's super fun, and I love those '90s lines, those old Kenner lines, or those lines where Playmates where you could get everything.
Did you ever do Mad Balls?
I did, yeah. I love Mad Balls.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of them now, but
they're kind of hard to find.
They're very hard to find. They've gone up in value a lot.
I don't know if I showed you this, but we got a collection, and this was early on, and it had that. I thought they were Ghostbusters at first, but it was more like a food fighters.
Oh, Food Fighters, yeah.
Yeah. Is that you remember?
I have some of those. Oh yeah. That's a cool
They're actually
line.
pretty expensive if you can find them in good condition.
Yeah, carded they're a lot.
Yeah.
Even loose, like you're talking $20-$30 a pop usually.
Yeah.
So they're not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it took us a while to figure out what they were. We were like, these are Food Fighters.
Yeah, Food Fighters are
and
cool.
to remember what these toy lines were, like, because the time period you were really kind of collecting was, you'd missed that tail end of Masters Universe.
Yeah,
the heyday of Masters Universe and the heyday of G.I. Joe and Transformers, even Star Wars. And so it was like I remember it was that Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters were two of the bigger ones.
Those were the big ones, yeah. And then
it was pre-Power
Force, 90s Star Wars was big.
Did you ever do Power Rangers or Captain Planet or anything like that?
I didn't. No, I mean my little brother liked Power Rangers a lot. I never really did Power Rangers.
Story. Weird thing to get into.
Yeah. No, I mean,
you know the guy that Saban that started Power Rangers. You know how he got to start in the business?
Mm-mm.
He was doing intros to cartoon, musical intros to cartoons, and one of his more popular ones was Inspector Gadget.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast with him on him. He was talking about, I did all these little jingles. He goes, one day I was just in Japan and I saw this goofy show on, and I was like, and that's how he brought Power Rangers to the U.S.
That was a huge phenomenon. I mean, it's still going strong. I feel like
it's but it's crazy how much things like toys and are part of our personalities.
It really
and
is.
How we kind of like, you think about your branding and how you want things to look, and like you like these wacky, and like think about something like Ninja Turtles where the art, started off so different, and there's just so many offshoots of it that have been completely different. You're like, I don't really like that one. Oh, I like that one. It looks cool.
Yeah.
And their stories have kind of changed a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah, it's been fun, man. It's a great outlet. It's fun, and people always make a comment. My whole office, you walk in my office, and there's just stuff everywhere.
It's a great conversation.
It's a great conversation. It's amazing.
I could spend 5 minutes just looking at your wall, going,
"Oh, I know.
Hey, where'd you get this?"
Well, and it's amazing too. The people that you would never think are collectors are into that certain stuff. There's a guy, he's a volleyball coach at one of the schools, and we're doing some stuff, but he just so happened to walk to my office or the showroom, and he was like, oh man, like, do you like G.I. Joes? And I was like, yeah, I do. I grew up with G.I. Joe. I don't really collect them. He's a huge G.I. Joe collector.
Yeah.
And he showed me a picture of all this stuff. It's unbelievable. And it's just like, you just never know. And I love that. I love we all have that thing, that takes us back or gives us those little fun feelings.
And honestly,
you just need to
I
keep
feel
going,
sorry for
man.
those people who don't.
I know, right? Like having a hobby is good.
It is really, it's important.
It's so important.
I can't tell you how much I've connected with people. And I'd have to say the majority of people I've had on this podcast so far I've met through the comic shop.
Yeah.
Even though that's not, and most people when they're here in Spring Hill know me from the comic store, not what I do for money. Because this is, it was a hobby thing. But every one of these people I've met, they're all so different. And I love to find those things that, like this one guy, he's so into, a certain time period of comic books, the late silver, early bronze area, and then there's some that just really want those old, really high-end comics. And then there's some that like, they're starting to come in more and more now. Hey, we're looking for those 90s, like those 90s runs of Batman or Spider-Man or X-Men. And it's like,
nice.
Or they want to bring them in and try to sell them. And I'm like, look, there's a bazillion of these comic books out there. They're not worth a lot, but I get the nostalgia factor and you want to try to make some money off them, but here's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting. And then you get those people like you come in and like if I ever find a toy that I think, one, if you already don't have it because you've already got so many toys, it's like if I ever come across a toy that, oh, this is something I think John Bond.
Yeah,
it's
I love that.
it's like I would call you and be like, hey man, have you ever seen one of these? And then if you ever respond and go, holy crap, I've never seen that, then I'm gonna be like, all right, I found a unicorn here.
Yeah.
Because I pulled out Planet of the Apes stuff from my friend, and he's like, he goes, yeah, I've got that. Yeah, I got that. Yeah. How do you have that doll? I was like, this is an old doll. Like, it's like from the 60s.
That's awesome.
But those little things, those things that people get into are part of what makes us, and I think it's pretty cool. I think that's why we do what we do, is because there's a story attached to it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why. There's a reason why I collect this. And I think that really ties into like what you do for a living. There's a reason why people pick their brands,
Yeah.
So
no, I think it's cool, man. I mean, it's all fun. I mean, you need to be serious, but keep the fun. I do. I love what you said earlier. Like I don't know. It's life's tough, man. So it's like find something you love to do, and then find something that you can get those feels out of, like collecting toys or comics or going to the gym or whatever it is. I mean, you need something, and something that you have to work for. I think is important too, because even collecting. I mean, how people go bonkers. They'll go all in. You'll hunt all over the country, or there's guys that I talk to on Instagram and about finding. It's like a whole community, and it's like Indiana Jones looking for a a lost relic. Like, yeah, it's fun.
Well, I've done it. I was in that place in Noonan, Georgia. It's a really cool store. I can't remember the name of it. It's I can't remember. It's a really cool retro toy store. Every time I go in there, man, honestly, they have this one section off to the if you walk in the front door off to the right, there's this one glass case, and it always has the stuff that you collect. Master Universe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters. Those are always in that case.
I need to get down there.
You need to get down there, and because they have their toys sectioned off, and so there's a Star Wars section, here's the Marvel section, here's the DC section, here's the sport, like baseball stuff, like starting lineups and stuff like that. They've got all these things, Barbies, it's all there. But on this right side is like all this, like what I would consider the hard to find early 80s 90s toys. And I more often than not have carded Ninja Turtle stuff.
Nice.
And I'm like literally over here snapping photos and sending them to you. And I remember a couple times, dude, I'm at Disney World. I ain't got time to look at this. But I'm like, hey, but this is here. I'm going to be here for another 20 minutes. If you want it, I'll buy it for you, and I can hook you up.
I love
it. And it's not even I'm trying to make money off of it. It's like, look, I've found this toy that you might want.
Yeah.
And I have done that at Comic Cons, where it's like, I know what my customers want. And it's like, I'm not even trying to make money on this. Like, I know he's looking for this comic.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll send him a text, what do you don't have in your run? And like, oh, I'm putting together this. And I find more fulfillment out of that than trying to turn $1 in here in the comic. Now, I got to turn $1 in the comic shop if I'm going to keep the doors open. And they're always like, well, what do you pay you for that? What do you mean pay you for that? I'm like, look, this is what I got it for. This is what the price is. Maybe we'll do it that way. But at the same time, it's like, I'm more looking for what I think other people want than sometimes even for myself. I've gone to Comic Cons and not gotten anything for myself and bought it for other people.
I love that.
Because
you get it. You get the connection, you get the feel. You can get that.
I really do find enjoyment going, hey, look, man, I found this thing for you.
No, it's cool. I love that, and I love doing that too. That's super fun.
And for me, it's like people do that to me too. Like, oh, I found this Batman toy or a Star Wars figure, and it's like. I'm like, yeah, I got that. I don't want that. It's like, and I'm like on the flip side of that too. And sometimes, like, somebody sent me, was it Joey? No, somebody sent me something the other day. And we're like, hey, check this out. And I said, get it. That's all I said was just get it. I don't care how much it costs. Just buy it. Or somebody will bring something in here and Joey's like, check this out. And I'm like, yeah, I get that too.
Yeah, like put that in the back, please.
Joey's got this really weird eye for like weird comics. Like the covers, it's something like with Donald Trump on it or Barack Obama or just something weird retro like Dolly Parton Johnny Cash mashup comic, and there's stuff like that out there. You wouldn't think it. That's but like weird. He'll go to a comic and it'll be $1 comic, and like it wouldn't be, he just wants it because it looks funny.
Yeah.
He can sniff those things out, and I think it's cool. And I'm just like, I don't really notice those as much as he does, but he's got the eye for it.
I'm a sucker for those old weird covers too. I just got one. It's not worth a lot, but it's a Fantastic Four, and it's got Hitler on the cover, and it's like she Hulk's on in the Fantastic Four at the time. She's like, Nick Fury's gonna kill Hitler, and it's like Hitler on the cover of this comic book from like the '70s, and it's just it's just weird.
Those Nazi books those are sought after. There's like a market for those. Like, because there's a lot of, especially early on, because that was the big threat back in the day. You know.
Yeah, and it's national pride and all that. I love it. It's just I love weird books like that.
We got this whole run we got a comic collection not too long ago, and there was this whole run of like, this was like, I have to say this was during the Bush years. It had to have been, because it was like George Bush and like Dick Cheney, and they were like superheroes. And then like you'd flip it, and like, I don't know if you've ever seen like that Conan cover. You know, it's Conan and like I think it's Valeria or Red Sonja, whoever's sitting down low. You know, it's like the #1 cover. You know it if you've seen it. But instead it was like George Bush, and then there was like Sarah Palin down here, and like you got Cheney in the back, and it's like, you know, if you know what I'm talking about, it's like, it's super hilarious stuff.
Yeah.
And then we used to get these. There's this one guy, super conservative, you know, Trump fan dude, and like get these Biden's Titans, and it would have like, it was like a X-Men type team, and like it was like led by Biden, and you'd have like you'd have all these Democrats on it, and I would literally just buy them and stick them in his box just to aggravate him.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. That's great.
But yeah, we like to have
some
fun.
Weird comics out there for sure. I love it.
All right, man, what's your parting wisdom?
Ooh,
for those out there hustling, trying to make it in this world,
man, don't give up. Don't ever give up. Like if you have a vision, you believe in what you're doing, fight tooth and nail until you can't anymore. You know, like just go out swinging, because it's worth it. It's worth it to create something for yourself if you can do it. You know, and because it's not always easy. I mean, we run into stuff all the time, but I think persevering and again, like having a vision and staying true to yourself, your values, keeping your integrity, but yeah, just kick ass and get it done.
I love it.
Yeah,
I tell you, man, that's important, because when it gets hard, you got to remember what you're doing it for.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not always pretty, but it's really fulfilling.
It is rewarding.
It's very rewarding, and you get to meet great people like you, and you get to sit down and do cool stuff like this. And it's fun, man. It's all worth it.
Well, this is where I'm kind of hoping to take my business, is doing a little more of these. I actually want to do these for more business owners, to give them an outlet to speak.
It's great. I mean, you know, you don't get a lot of opportunity to kind of tell those stories, you know, especially
I think it's important.
Origin stories of, because you hire new employees that they've worked for me for a year. I've been doing this for 13. They don't know that I used to print every shirt. You know, they just think I'm just the dude that owns the business. So it's interesting.
I'll say this, and then we'll wrap this up. But I had my first video production company. I remember I had employees. They were like, no idea that I got into this business because I wanted to do what they wanted to do, and they were like, I just thought you wanted to run a business. I was like, are you kidding? Yeah. Anyway, John, dude, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, man.
Taking time out of your morning to come hang out with me and talk with me on the podcast. For those of y'all who are interested in what John does, make sure, one, follow his Instagram, Toyturnia.
Oh yeah, for all nerd stuff.
All nerd stuff. That's time. But if you're really looking for a place to get something printed, hats, clothing, now signs.
Yeah, if you can slap a logo on it, we pretty much
do. Throw that website up.
It's twinegraphics.com. And our Instagram, I think, is @twinegraphics across all the different platforms. But yeah,
you got a YouTube page?
We don't. You know, we started one, but we never got around to. We actually, I think I built that 2020 right before the world turned to mess, and we have not picked that back up. We'd love to do some videos.
I should talk to you about that. We'll sit down.
Definitely should.
Help you set that up.
Because it'd be cool to demystify.
Especially since you've got the space now.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it's interesting. We'll bring clients back there. They see the equipment running, and they see how the shirts, get printed, and they're like, "This is what you have to do to make a shirt." And you're like, "Yeah, there's a lot to it. Like, it's not just magic, So, anyways, it'd be cool. We should do that.
Well, listen, man. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks for coming by. And y'all check out John on his socials and check out Twine Graphics, because they're a pretty cool company.
Awesome. Thanks,
all right, man. John, man. Have a great day, buddy.
Appreciate you. You too.
Thanks.
Bye.